Life's a bitch, and then you die. That's what my old man used to say before he up and left us. I never thought I'd end up agreeing with that deadbeat, but here I am, 33 years old, single mom, drowning in debt, and desperate enough to take a job that's shadier than a vampire's beach house. My name's Lisa, and this is how I almost fed my kid to a monster. It all started on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were always the worst. That's when all the bills seemed to show up, each one screaming, "Past due," in big red letters. I was sitting at my kitchen table, trying to figure out how to stretch $20 into a week's worth of groceries, when my phone buzzed. It was a job alert. Night Waitress needed at some diner off Gold Camp Road. $35 an hour. I damn near dropped my phone. That kind of money could change everything. I could finally get caught up on rent, maybe even start saving for Mia's college fund. But $35 an hour for slinging hash? In the middle of nowhere? Something didn't add up. Still, beggars can't be choosers, and I was definitely begging. I fired off an application before I could talk myself out of it. An hour later, my phone rang. A gravelly voice on the other end asked if I could start that night. No interview, no background check, nothing. Just be there at 11 p.m. sharp. I should have known then that something was off. But when you're a single mom with more debt than sense, you don't ask questions. You just say yes and pray you're not making a huge mistake. I called my sister to watch Mia, threw on the cleanest clothes I could find, and hit the road. The drive out to Gold Camp Road was creepy as hell. The highway twisted through the mountains like a giant snake, with nothing but darkness on either side. My headlights caught glimpses of scraggly trees and rocky outcrops, but mostly it was just an endless void of black. The diner appeared out of nowhere, a splash of neon in the darkness. Gold Camp Diner, the sign read, buzzing and flickering like it was on its last legs. The parking lot was empty, except for a beat-up pickup truck and an ancient Buick that looked like it hadn't moved since the Carter administration. I took a deep breath, trying to ignore the voice in my head screaming at me to turn around and go home. "You can do this, Lisa," I muttered to myself. "It's just a job. Just a normal, slightly creepy, middle-of-nowhere job." The bell above the door jingled as I walked in, and I swear to God, every head in the place turned to look at me. There were only 3 customers, an old couple in a booth by the window and a trucker type at the counter, but their stares made me feel like I'd just walked into a lion's den wearing a meat suit. "You must be Lisa," a voice called out. I turned to see an old woman emerge from the kitchen. She looked about 100 years old, all wrinkles and white hair, but her eyes were sharp as tacks. "I'm Mabel. Come on back. Let's get you set up." I followed her to a small office in the back. She handed me a uniform, one of those classic diner waitress outfits, complete with a little apron and a folded piece of paper. "Here's your uniform and the rules," she said. "Memorize them. They're important." I unfolded the paper, expecting the usual stuff about food safety and customer service. What I got instead made my blood run cold. Rule 1. Always greet customers with, "Welcome to Gold Camp Diner. What'll it be tonight?" Do not deviate from this greeting. Rule 2. If a customer orders something not on the menu, politely inform them we're out of that item. Do not attempt to make special orders. Rule 3. Do not look directly at customers while taking their order. Keep your eyes on your notepad. Rule 4. If you hear scratching sounds from the kitchen, ignore them. Do not investigate. Rule 5. If a customer asks to use the restroom between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., Inform them the restrooms are out of order. Rule 6. Do not enter the walk-in freezer under any circumstances. Rule 7. If you see a customer's reflection in a mirror or window, but not the customer themselves, excuse yourself immediately and inform the manager. Rule 8. If a child enters the diner alone after midnight, do not serve them. Call the manager immediately. Rule 9. At the end of your shift, count to 100 before leaving the diner. If you hear your name called, start counting again. I looked up at Mabel, waiting for her to crack a smile, to tell me it was all a joke. But her face was dead serious. "What the hell kind of rules are these?" I asked. Mabel's eyes narrowed. "The kind that keep you alive, girl. Now you gonna follow 'em or not?" I thought about the stack of bills waiting for me at home, about Mia's worn-out shoes and the field trip I couldn't afford to send her on. I swallowed hard and nodded. "Good," Mabel said. "Your shift starts in 5 minutes. Get changed and get out there." As I put on the uniform, my hands were shaking so bad I could barely button the dress. What had I gotten myself into? But it was too late to back out now. I needed this job, weird rules or not. The next few hours were a blur of coffee refills and greasy plates. The customers were few and far between, mostly truckers and night owls who looked like they'd seen better days. I stuck to the rules, keeping my eyes down and my greeting consistent. "Welcome to Gold Camp Diner. What'll it be tonight?" Around 2 a.m., things got weird. A man in a suit walked in, looking way too put together for this time of night in the middle of nowhere. He sat down at the counter, and when I approached, he looked right at me and said, "I'll have the special." I froze. We didn't have a special. Rule number 2 flashed through my mind. "I'm sorry, sir," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "We're out of the special tonight. Can I get you something else?" The man's eyes narrowed, and for a second I swear they glowed red. "Are you sure about that?" he asked, his voice low and menacing. I nodded, gripping my notepad so tight my knuckles turned white. "Yes, sir. I'm sure. Can I recommend the burger instead?" He stared at me for what felt like an eternity before finally nodding. "Fine. A burger it is." As I turned to put in his order, I heard a scratching sound coming from the kitchen. It was faint at first, but it quickly grew louder, like something with claws was trying to dig its way out of the walls. I remembered rule number 4 and forced myself to ignore it, even as the sound set my teeth on edge. The night wore on, each hour bringing some new horror. A woman whose reflection walked away while she stayed seated. A child who appeared at the door at 3 a.m., his eyes black as coal. Each time, I followed the rules, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. By the time my shift was ending, I was a wreck. I'd seen things that defied explanation, things that made me question my sanity. But I'd made it. I'd followed the rules and survived. As I changed out of my uniform, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. There, at the bottom of the rule sheet, was a 10th rule I hadn't noticed before. Rule 10. If you see the owner of the diner, Mr. Goldcamp, do not acknowledge him. Do not speak to him. Do not look at him. Leave immediately, and do not return. My hands started shaking. I'd seen Mr. Goldcamp. He'd come in around 4 a.m., a tall, gaunt man with eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. And I'd not only acknowledged him, I'd served him coffee and chatted with him about the weather. Panic rising in my throat, I rushed out of the diner, barely remembering to count to 100 before I left. As I reached my car, I heard someone call my name. It was Mabel, standing in the doorway of the diner. "You did good tonight, Lisa," she said, "but you might not want to come back tomorrow. Or ever." I didn't need to be told twice. I jumped in my car and sped away, my tires kicking up gravel as I peeled out of the parking lot. The drive home was a blur. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything I'd seen and heard. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sun was starting to rise, casting an orange glow over the neighborhood. I walked into my house, exhausted and shell-shocked. My sister was asleep on the couch, and I could hear Mia stirring in her room. I went to check on her, needing to see her face, to ground myself in something normal and good. But as I opened her door, I heard something that made my blood run cold. "Welcome to Gold Camp Diner," Mia was saying in her sleep. "What'll it be tonight?" I stood there, frozen in horror, as my 7-year-old daughter recited the rules I'd memorized just hours ago. Rule after rule, word for word, in a voice that didn't sound like her own. And that's when I knew. The nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. I spent the next few days in a daze, jumping at every shadow, flinching at every unexpected sound. I kept expecting to see Mr. Goldcamp's glowing eyes peering at me from dark corners, or to hear that awful scratching coming from inside my walls. But nothing happened. Life went on, maddeningly normal. Mia went to school, I cleaned houses and picked up odd jobs, and the bills kept piling up. The only reminder of that night at Gold Camp Diner was the fat wad of cash in my purse, my wages for a single shift of terror. A week after that night, I was sitting at the kitchen table, once again trying to figure out how to make ends meet. The money from the diner had helped, but it wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. And now the rent was due. Mia needed new shoes, and the car was making a noise that screamed, "Expensive repair." My phone buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. "We need you for another shift. Double pay. Tonight." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room to pretend I'd never seen it. But another part? I looked at the pile of bills, at Mia's worn-out shoes by the door, at the eviction notice I'd been trying to ignore. "Fuck," I muttered. Then I texted back, "I'll be there." As I drove out to the diner that night, I told myself it would be different. I knew the rules now. I could handle it. And with double pay, I could finally get ahead. Maybe even start looking for a better place to live. But as soon as I pulled into the parking lot, I knew I'd made a terrible mistake. The diner looked wrong. The neon sign was flickering more violently than before, casting sickly pulses of light across the empty lot. And the windows? Were those shadows moving behind them? Or just my imagination? I sat in my car, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Every instinct was screaming at me to drive away, to forget about the money and the bills, and just get the hell out of there. But then I thought about Mia, about the life I wanted to give her, and I knew I had no choice. I took a deep breath and got out of the car. As I walked towards the diner, I ran through the rules in my head. Greet customers properly. Don't look them in the eye. Ignore the scratching. I could do this. I had to do this. The bell jingled as I pushed open the door, the sound unnaturally loud in the quiet night. The diner was empty, the booths casting long shadows in the dim light. "Hello?" I called out. "Mabel?" No answer. Just the soft hum of the refrigerators and the tick-tick-tick of a clock on the wall. I made my way to the back, my footsteps echoing on the linoleum floor. The staff room was empty, my uniform hanging on a hook like it was waiting for me. As I changed, I tried to shake off the feeling of dread that was settling over me like a heavy blanket. Just as I finished buttoning up my dress, I heard the bell jingle again. Customers already? I hurried out to the dining room, plastering on my best waitress smile. "Welcome to Gold Camp Diner. What'll it be tonight?" The words felt like ashes in my mouth. The man at the counter didn't respond. He just sat there, staring straight ahead. I cleared my throat and tried again. "Sir, can I get you something to drink?" Still nothing. Remembering the rules, I kept my eyes on my notepad, not looking directly at him. That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The man wasn't casting a shadow. I backed away slowly, my heart pounding. What was I supposed to do? This wasn't in the rules. As I reached for the phone to call Mabel, I heard a sound that stopped me in my tracks. Scratching, coming from the kitchen. But this wasn't the faint scratching I'd heard before. This was loud, frantic, like something was trying to claw its way out. And then I heard something else, a voice, muffled but unmistakable, coming from the walk-in freezer. "Help! Please, somebody help me!" I stood there, frozen in indecision. The rules said not to enter the freezer under any circumstances. But there was someone in there. Someone who needed help. Before I could make a decision, the scratching suddenly stopped. The diner fell silent, the kind of silence that feels like a physical weight pressing down on you. And then I saw him. Mr. Goldcamp, standing in the doorway to the kitchen, his eyes glowing like hot coals in the dim light. "Lisa," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I'm so glad you came back. We have a very special order tonight." I wanted to run, to scream, to do anything but stand there. But I was paralyzed, rooted to the spot by a terror so profound, it felt like my very soul was trying to escape my body. Mr. Goldcamp smiled, revealing rows of sharp, gleaming teeth. "Don't worry," he said. "This won't hurt much." He lunged forward impossibly fast. I finally found my voice and screamed, stumbling backwards. I knocked over a chair, the crash jolting me into action. I ran. Out of the diner, across the parking lot, fumbling with my car keys. Behind me, I could hear something big, moving fast. I practically dove into my car, jamming the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life just as something slammed into the side of the car, rocking it violently. I floored it, tires squealing as I peeled out of the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of, I don't know what, something huge, multi-limbed, with too many eyes, something that shouldn't exist. I drove home in a panic, constantly checking my mirrors, sure that at any moment I'd see that thing gaining on me. But nothing followed me. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sun was coming up, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. I sat there for a long time, shaking, trying to process what had happened. Had it been real? Or had I finally cracked under the stress of it all? Finally, I went inside. Mia was still asleep, thank God. I checked on her, relieved to see her peaceful face, untouched by the horrors I'd just experienced. As I turned to leave her room, I heard her stir. "Mommy?" she mumbled, still half asleep. "Yes, baby?" I said, my voice hoarse from screaming. "Don't forget rule number 10, she said, her eyes still closed. "If you see Mr. Goldcamp, don't look at him. Don't talk to him. Just run." I stood there, frozen in shock and horror. I backed out of Mia's room, my mind reeling. How the hell did she know about the rules? About Mr. Goldcamp? I hadn't told her anything. I'd been careful, so damn careful. I stumbled to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. In the mirror, I looked like shit. Dark circles under my eyes, hair a mess, skin pale as a ghost. But at least I was alive. At least I'd escaped, whatever the fuck that thing was. But had I really escaped? The rules were in my house now, in my daughter's head. What did that mean? What had I brought home with me? I spent the next few days in a state of constant anxiety, jumping at every sound, flinching at every shadow. I kept expecting to see Mr. Goldcamp's glowing eyes peering at me from dark corners, or to hear that awful scratching coming from inside my walls. Mia seemed normal enough during the day. She went to school, did her homework, watched cartoons. But at night, she'd sometimes mutter in her sleep. Bits and pieces of the rules. Warnings about the walk-in freezer. Please not to look Mr. Goldcamp in the eye. It was driving me insane. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The bills kept piling up, but there was no way in hell I was going back to that diner. I'd rather live on the street than face that thing again. A week after my last shift, I was sitting at the kitchen table trying to figure out how to make $20 stretch until payday when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We miss you at the diner, Lisa. The special's waiting for you. Don't keep us waiting too long." I dropped the phone like it was on fire, my heart pounding. They knew my number. They could reach me anytime, anywhere. That night, I packed a bag for me and Mia. We were getting out of here. Bills and job be damned. I'd figure something out. Anything was better than this. As I was throwing clothes into a suitcase, I heard Mia's voice from the doorway. "Mommy? Are we going somewhere?" I turned to see her standing there, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. "Yeah, baby," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We're gonna go on a little trip. Adventure, you know?" Mia tilted her head, looking at me with eyes that suddenly seemed way too old for her 7 years. "Is it because of the diner?" she asked. I froze. What do you know about the diner, Mia?" She shrugged, looking down at her feet. "I see it sometimes. In my dreams. There's a man there, with glowy eyes. He's hungry, Mommy. He's always so hungry. I felt like I was going to be sick." "Mia, honey, listen to me," I said, kneeling down to her level. "That place, those dreams, they're not real. They're just bad dreams, okay? We're gonna go away for a while and everything will be better. I promise." Mia looked up at me, and for a second, I swear her eyes flashed with that same eerie glow I'd seen in Mr. Goldcamp's. "You can't run from the diner, Mommy," she said, her voice eerily calm. "It's part of us now. It's hungry, and it won't stop until it's fed." I stumbled back, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. Just then, my phone buzzed again. Another text. "Time's up, Lisa. The special's ready. Bring Mia with you. Mr. Goldcamp is excited to meet her." That was it. We were out of here. Now I grabbed Mia, not even bothering with the suitcase anymore. We ran to the car, my hands shaking so bad I could barely get the key in the ignition. As we pulled out of the driveway, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A figure standing at the end of our street, tall, impossibly thin, with eyes that glowed in the darkness. Mr. Goldcamp. I floored it, tires screeching as we sped away. In the rearview mirror, I saw the figure slowly fade into the night. We drove for hours, no destination in mind, just away. Away from the diner, away from Mr. Goldcamp, away from the nightmare our lives had become. But as the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I realized a terrible truth. You can't outrun a nightmare. Not when it's inside your head. Not when it's in your child's dreams. I looked over at Mia, peacefully asleep in the passenger seat. What had I done to her? What had that godforsaken diner done to us? As if in answer, Mia stirred in her sleep. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw that eerie glow again. "Mommy?" she mumbled, still half asleep. "Yes, baby," I said, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I'm hungry," she said. And then, in a voice that wasn't her own, she added, "What'll it be tonight?" I kept driving, the words echoing in my head. What'll it be tonight? What'll it be tonight? What'll it be tonight? I didn't have an answer. I still don't. All I know is that we can't go back. We can never go back. But I'm starting to think that maybe, just maybe, we never really left. Because in the end, the diner isn't just a place. It's a hunger that never ends, never sleeps, never stops. And now, it's inside us. God help us all.